Hey everybody, welcome back to Leosophy. This is the second part in the meditation series, and it's the first one where I'm actually going to be talking about a kind of meditation. I wanted to talk about, for the first one, mindfulness and body scan. Um, what are they good for, and like what's the main component of them? Um, Body scan is really interesting compared to a lot of the other ones because it does actively incorporate other senses into it, mainly touch. I mean, not much of anything else. And then mindfulness extends that to something further. So, one unique component about it, and I'll touch up a little more on it later, is that these techniques can be done completely on their own, but they can also be incorporated with other forms of meditation. And in fact, that's usually where they really shine. It's very rare to see someone do just one version of this. That being said, mindfulness meditation, let's start with that. That is a form of meditation where you sit and you actively take note of the thoughts that arise. It's not just a mere question of accepting them, which is the more common means of dealing with arising thoughts. Instead, mindfulness is really more about asking questions and observing it and trying to be objective about it. And in some ways, you're sort of analyzing your own mind with your mind, which is kind of peculiar. It's interesting to consider, and I know I say interesting a lot, but the mind can't contemplate itself. Like if you think about your own mind, what you're really doing is you're constructing a model mentally. So and if you think about it in those contexts, then now you're constructing a model of a model. You can't really actively contend with your own mind. You can't think about it objectively. You can't analyze it the way you would your hand. And part of that is to do with sensation. You can think about the sensation in your hand. You can't really think about the sensation in your mind because it doesn't actually sense anything. At least not in the way that we think about sensation. The mind deals with abstractions and with thought and with interpreting sensory data, but it doesn't feel things. It doesn't smell things. You will never actually hear someone sincerely say that their brain hurts. They might use it as an idea about how it's tough to think about something, maybe even what I'm talking about, but your brain can't actually hurt. Well, what mindfulness does is it allows the mind to, as close as possible, to analyze and interpret itself. So, the way this is done normally is a person sits and they relax and they, more often than not close their eyes and they just wait for thoughts to arise. And then when the thought arises, they ask themselves questions about it. They don't follow it. They don't, you start daydreaming. You don't follow through with it. You don't attempt to fall down that rabbit hole. Instead, it's more along the lines of, why did I think of that? So, negative memory arises, positive memory arises. Did I leave the oven on? Arises. I should get eggs at the grocery store later arises. Why? Why did that pop up? What caused that to crop up? So what you're really doing, you think about the generic conspiracy theory pic of Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia with the little threads connecting everything. That's sort of what you're doing. You're connecting threads that lead from your conscious to your subconscious, and you see where it's going. That's sort of the best way to think of mindfulness. Body scan is a narrower form of this, where you're actively seeing how certain things feel. And it's a really great way to deal with chronic pain or anxiety that has physical symptoms. Because what you're really doing is you're not ignoring something that you're probably in your conscious life ignoring. When we think about an achy leg or a sore muscle or a chronic persistent headache or physical symptoms of anxiety like breathing too heavily, things like that, we tend to think of it in a judgmental and negative way. We tend to think of the offending body part doing something wrong. Whereas body scan really, it's a form of mindfulness meditation where you're more mindful not of your thoughts, but rather, of your sensations. So that's a huge difference. By the way, I said excuse me like real effeminate. Did anybody pick up on that? That was like kind of weird. I don't know why I did it like that, like a flippin' sorority girl who sneezes, you know. But anyway, mindfulness meditation in the narrower context of body scan is about putting your awareness on specific places. And usually, the way it works, it doesn't begin with something that's sore in and of itself. You just go over the entire body and you just become very, very hyper aware of it. Because we don't usually think about our body unless it's hurting us, or unless there is something, very important happening with that right now. you know and what's great about this, both mindfulness and body scan, is it pulls you out of the going through the motions, just reacting mindset that people have. By the way, any clicking noise, I play with my pen a lot, even when I'm recording. I shouldn't, but I do. But it pulls you out of that. And I think about it, I've touched on this in a previous episode, how people will, a lot of times they'll be in a slump and then they'll go on vacation and then they come back home and they're just more aware. They're more mindful at work. They're more aware of the relationship that they have with their family, whoever they went on vacation with usually. Things like that. They're sort of pulled out of that slump of just reacting, of going through the motions. Well, you can, a lot cheaper than that, mindfulness meditation can do that. It can pull you out of that. It makes you more aware of things. And similarly, people who are diagnosed with a terminal illness will often experience that as well. They get pulled out. They're going through the motions, they're just living and reacting, and they're not paying attention to things around them. And then they're told, you have, 4 months to live. And now all of a sudden, the prairie just outside their place of work that they drive to every morning, now all of a sudden they really see how green the grass is and how yellow those flowers are. And, the smell of the daisies in the ditch along the road is just overpowering and beautiful. They become hyper aware. Well, that's what body scan and mindfulness meditation does in different ways. And lastly, one that I think is extremely useful for anxiety. I have a loose hair. I feel like this video, I swear to God, I've done more like little asides from distractions, leaving them in. One other form that can really help with the more physical symptoms of anxiety would be progressive relaxation. So what this is, it's very similar to mindfulness, except you're actively taking part in it. And it's really great, by the way, for insomnia. In fact, I would recommend this more so for insomnia than any other form of meditation, because a lot of meditations are quite invigorating and should be done in the morning. But this is great if you're having trouble going to sleep. In fact, I know for a fact that several people in the military have used this technique because, if you're in a trench and you're using, a sandbag as a pillow, it's kind of hard to sleep. So this is great. What you're doing is you're relaxing and you're lying down, and you actively contract muscles usually from your head to your toes. Sometimes people go from toes to head in a certain order. So like you ruffle your forehead and you pull back on your ears if you can, and you contract your face, and then you relax them, and then you just move down. Shoulders contract hard as you can without hurting yourself, and then you relax them. And you just keep doing this. You're very mindful of the specific parts of your body as you go down to your toes or up to your head, and then when you're done, you're done. And what's nice about it is if anything was tense as you were trying to sleep, well, now it's not, because you've activated those muscles and then you've relaxed them. So it's a really great form of meditation that I think falls into the mindfulness and body scan family. I'm sort of categorizing these by certain qualities and attributes that they have, and these three being the most somatic of the three, that is to say, pertaining to the body, I think sort of deserved the first episode, their own little entry. Next time, I'm going to be talking about Vipassana. So, like, share, subscribe, keep asking questions. Bye.